So now before we move on to adjusting the slideshow down here, let's adjust our breakpoints so we're using min width instead. That is, that we're coding for mobile first. So I'll go back to our code and we're just gonna go through every section where we're using a max width breakpoint. So we'll start with the top right here. And what I'm gonna do is just cut all of these styles out of the breakpoint and I'll paste them right on top. And then any styles that directly override these, I'm gonna put inside the breakpoint. So our float right, we're gonna put in the breakpoint. And our padding top is something that was coming into play during our breakpoint, but also outside of our breakpoint. So we'll leave that outside. And so now we need to go down these and override them where we need to. So float none, we can actually remove since that's the default float value. Width, 365 pixels, we need to adjust. So we're gonna set the width to auto, which in this case, with an image, we'll set it to the width of the image. And then our margin left and margin right, we need to adjust. So let's just set the margin to inherit, which is its default value. Text align, let's adjust that. We'll set that to inherit as well. And then padding bottom, we need to reset. And let's remove this max width in the breakpoint. We'll save it and refresh in the browser. Okay, so here's our center alignment. And as we get bigger, it bumps up to the right. Now it seems like we had to override a lot of styles here. So it may start to make you feel like it makes sense to use max width breakpoints because it reduces the amount of code that we have to maintain. I feel like that's a legitimate approach. And especially since we're designing from the desktop into the mobile rather than the other way around, at least for this project, then max width is a more natural fit. But it's a good exercise to get a sense of how min width works. And in some projects that you end up working with, there will be standards around using min width exclusively for breakpoints. So for the exercise, what we're going to do is go through and still adjust these so that we use min width instead of max width. So let's go down to our logo next. Again, what we'll do is cut all of the properties out and paste them into the logo selector directly. And then we'll take any properties that directly contradict properties that we just pasted in, and we'll put those in the breakpoint. So we'll put our float left, and we can also remove our float none here since that's a default. Let's remove our max width from the breakpoint, and let's override these styles here. So we're going to set the width to auto. We'll set the margin to 0 to reset it. We'll set the display. So instead of a block, we'll set it to inline block. And our margin bottom will already be overridden by this right here. So the other breakpoint that we need to adjust for is the 490 pixels. So let's remove the max width here. And because this will come into play earlier than the one column breakpoint, we need to cut it and paste it before the one column breakpoint. Now let's save this and refresh in the browser. And let's drop our browser down. Okay, so as we hit the first breakpoint, we see the width of our logo being 100% across. So what we need to do here is swap out this width with this width because we want the logo to be 100% until we get to 490 pixels wide, and then we want to set it to 450 pixels. So let's swap these out. We'll save it and refresh. Okay, now when we get smaller, we get 100% at some point. That looks better. Let's drop down in our code to our next max width, and we'll follow the same procedure. I'm going to cut all the properties that are inside, paste them at the top of the container selector. We'll take any contradictory styles and paste them inside the breakpoint. So that'll be the float, and then we can remove float none since that's default. The font size was already being set for this element across the board, so we'll leave that. And then we need to override our text alignment and margin bottom. So here in the breakpoint, we'll set the text align to left. We'll set the margin bottom to 0. And let's remove the max width from the breakpoint here. We'll save this. And again, we're looking at our navigation. Let's refresh. Okay, looks aligned in the center. As we get bigger, it bumps to the left. Perfect. So now our last one is the phone button. So let's follow the same process. We'll cut all of the styles out, paste them into the main selector. We'll cut any contradictory styles, just the float in this case, and paste it inside the breakpoint. I can remove the float none here. And now let's reset the styles for this breakpoint. So the width in this case will be auto. We'll set the text align to left. We'll set the display to inline block, and we'll set the margins to 0. Okay, let's save that and refresh in the browser. Oops, we forgot to remove our max width. So I'll remove that, save it, refresh in the browser. There we go. And as we get bigger, it pulls it to the right. Okay,